I've been in a meeting, so I'm assuming nothing will happen this afternoon.
I'm feeling we should probably get started. Just want to double check. I can't remember who from compliance is facilitating today, and I don't want to steal their thunder, but I shall kick us off until somebody sticks their hand up. So morning, no it's not, it's now afternoon. Welcome to our wellness seminar. Oh, it's been a long day already. As I hope you know, we're running a series of seminars looking at the different well-led quality statements that are put together by the Care Quality Commission. So this sits within the Health and Social Care Act. So this is the regulatory requirements that all healthcare organisations are required to meet. The CQC regularly come and do a well-led inspection of organisations, usually every 3 years, 4 years, that sort of timescale. And they really use the well-led as a chance to look at our organisation and very much focus on the leadership of our organisation, looking to see that we're open and transparent. And I think I've said at quite a few of these sessions, what's really important is that we understand our risks and our gaps, and we can articulate to the CQC what we're doing to address those. They don't expect perfection. They know that we are all human, but they do want us to understand, as I said, those risks, those gaps, and to actually be taking action to address them. So today's session is focused, as I said, on workforce equality, diversity and inclusion. And I think we're going to be led today by Jo.
You are. Thank you, Nicola. So good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jo Debenham and I am the Associate Director for OD and Culture. I was going to be joined by Paul Taylor today, but he's been called away to do something else. So he's left me all by myself. And it is my 11th week back in the trust. So I preface this by saying I'm going to do my very best, but there might just be the odd gap that I'll need to follow up and come back to you all on later, depending on how the conversation goes. And I went down a bit of a rabbit hole with these slides. So I've tried to work backwards and keep them quite relatively simple and give you the information that I think will be of use and that you can go back to and reference before your inspections or your visits or your interviews if you've been interviewed. So I'll work through the slides, but Nikki, if you can keep an eye on hands for me, I'm very happy to take questions as we go, to keep it very relaxed and informal so that hopefully you get the best out of the session. But if not, I'll try and spend not too long on the slides so that we can have a bit of an open discussion at the end. So I hope that's okay. And I'm going to leave my slides like this after I can't see anyone and I just don't like it. So this is one of 8 sessions, as Nicola said, for the well-led statements, and this one is focusing on workforce equality, diversity and inclusion. But as you will all have found, and especially for those of you that have joined multiple sessions, there's so much overlap. It's all about well-led, it's all about leadership, and it all crosses over. So you know, that will sort of become apparent as we go. So our statement is around valuing the diversity in our workforce. We work towards an inclusive and fair culture by improving equality and equity for people who work for us. And there's a range of subtopics, a lot of which I'll talk through today, how we treat our staff, their rights, their well-being, things like gender pay gap, race pay gap, disability pay gap, the diversity of our workforce, flexible working, the RES and the WDES, the Workforce Race Equality Standard and the Workforce Disability Equality Standard, harassment, bullying, abuse and lived experience. And as with the other sessions, how the CQC will test this is they are going to talk to our staff and of course they're going to talk to you as leaders and they're going to see if those things match up. They're going to see if what we say we do matches with our staff experience. And they'll also be talking to some of our other stakeholders and partners. For me, the test is the real lived examples. I can talk to you about this stuff for a lot of hours, but actually, and I'm going to finish off the session with a little bit of thinking around those real live examples that I know you all have. I don't know them, but I know that you do know some of those real live examples of how you are inclusive leaders. So first of all, I'm just going to describe what I think good looks like, and some of my slides feel like a bit of repetition, so sorry about that. So for us as leaders, we are, and again, this is like through the eyes of the CQC, that we are committed to ensuring an equal, diverse and inclusive organisation. We're able to evidence that there is a fair and inclusive culture, and that we promote anti-discriminatory practices. We have things like values-based recruitment, which includes our values and values that relate to ED&I. We are committed to our staff's human rights under the Equality Act. The ED&I applies to all of our staff, and we strengthen that through reviewing things like our values, looking at our feedback, our surveys and our data, etc., things like the RARES and the WADES. Our staffing is diverse, and it reflects the diverse needs of our service users and patients, and we reflect different cultures across the workforce. All of our staff will be able to say that they feel treated with fairness and respect, and they will be able to give stories of where we as leaders and management have called out poor behaviour when we've seen it. Equality, diversity, inclusion is supported by clear roles, things like EDI champions, which we don't have at the moment, but I'll come on to that. There is mandatory training around EDI. We can evidence EDI related activity for our staff. And there are leaders in the staff equality space. So things like senior leadership sponsors in our networks, and senior leaders fronting things like national celebrations and events, such as things like South Asian Heritage Month. You know, our leaders are there, they're supporting it, and they're allowing their staff to be part of it. We as leaders know what the challenges are that face our staff and protected characteristics around bullying, around violence, around discrimination, etc. And we can talk about the action that we've taken to address that at local level, some of which will come through things like freedom to speak up, staff survey, etc. And as I said for my last session, you know what your feedback is from your last inspection, and you'll be able to talk about how you've acted upon that. So just some of the stuff that we've got here in EPUT. We've just got a couple of slides around this, so I won't go into this in a lot of detail, but we have a whole raft of policies and procedures, and they're all listed here. We've got our behaviours framework, which I've again dropped in the chat. I think it's really powerful, and I don't think we necessarily use it as much as we should in EPUT. It is a really powerful way, whatever your faith, belief, culture, whatever that is, if you stick to those behaviours, we should be okay. And I would, advise people to just have a little refresh of that and have a little look at it if they haven't seen it lately. Things like our HR reporting talks about renewals and DBS checks and all of those things, and some of the other stuff we have, of course, our leadership culture programme with the King's Fund and BRAP, which I hope some of you have seen comms around, really for us to look at our leadership development and support, coaching and talent management. And BRAP, I had to write it in the chat because I keep forgetting, BRAP are the Birmingham Race Action Partnership. So we have specific support from a race charity so that we can make sure that the leadership programme that we design is designed with an anti-racism principles in mind. All of you will know, you do this all the time, your recruitment processes have value-based recruitment, and for panels above 8A you have to have representation not only from patient or service user or lived experience, but also from a member of BME staff. We have our anti-racist charter, which I'm hoping some of you have up on your walls, but if not, I've dropped it in the chat. And that has in it pledges for our leaders, our organisation and our processes. And that was signed by our staff side chair and our Chief People Officer, Andrew, back in the summer. We have we nearly have executive equality objectives. So they are on board and they are ready to sign up and have 2 objectives next year. One around the sponsorship, active leadership and sponsorship of a staff network, and one around how they bring equality much more into their portfolio, and that will then filter through to their next reports and their next reports. And then how we treat each other. And again, there's some policies and procedures there about fairness. And I'm not on commission for the behaviours framework, I promise. We have a lot of different ways that we support ED&I, but again, think about you in your unit, in your service, in the place where you work, where your staff put their sandwiches every day. You know, that's where the CQC are going to want to see those live examples. They're going to come to us for the corporate stuff, and we're being interviewed. So we have a lot of training, we have induction, we have bespoke sessions that we can run for staff, and we have our mandatory training. And we have things like the Oliver McGowan training, which is specifically around people with learning disabilities and neurodivergence, and how we ensure that we deliver services that are mindful and caring for people with those conditions. We have the annual OLM, which we've just moved over to the National Core Skills Training Framework, and that means that it is refreshed live and updated as any updates come into the equality and diversity sphere. We have our new staff experience and inclusion group, which met for the 2nd time face-to-face yesterday, and that think old equality committee. I'm not quite sure where we were with equality committees and networks, but it's a mixture of an equality committee and a staff experience committee. So that will be the place where equality really goes through governance. And there's a lot of examples of how we can evidence EDI related activity. We have our staff networks, and I'll talk about those next. I've just got a little slide about those. We have things like reasonable adjustments passports. We've got our amazing sexual safety and unprofessional behaviours programme, which we can evidence has had impact. So the staff survey results and the staff experience around incidents of sexual safety has improved this year. So we know that that's having an impact. And we have things like our weekly conduct concerns panel, which screens through to make sure that the decisions we make about whether to put staff through to formal disciplinary processes has been done fairly and equitably. And we, of course, have our Super Rise programme for staff from ethnic minority backgrounds. And again, there's a lot of stuff here around human rights, EDI and inclusion, surveys, feedback. Again, our policies, we have our workforce race equality standard and a workforce disability equality standard due again in May this year. We have our equality delivery system, pay gap, all of our statutory reporting, which is finished for this year and will be finally, it's all signed off, but it will be finally signed off by board on the 1st of April and then published on our website. What I have done is one of the things that I've dropped in a chat is a very high level overview of what the breakdown of our workforce looks like. How many women do we have? How many men do we have? And I won't go into a lot of detail about it here, but it is a snapshot. So it's not the full detail, but it does give you a sense of what the workforce breakdown is from an equality perspective here at EPUT. So our networks at the moment are going another refresh. I'm doing another refresh with the networks. I'm spending some time with our executive team when I get back from leave to agree which networks they will sponsor, link into their objectives. I think that's, really quite key from a well-led perspective. And the likelihood is, based on some co-design that we've done, is that we will have 5 networks and 1 cafe. So we've got disability and mental health, LGBTQ+, MREN, faith and spirituality, carers, and then the neuro-inclusive cafe. Now, the ones that are highlighted in blue are what I think are active at the moment in varying levels of activity, but they're the ones in blue that are live at the moment. And then lastly, just got a couple more slides. So we have quite a lot of governance around EDI. You won't be able to read this, and I wasn't intending for you to be able to, but I just wanted to show you what our plans are. The plans that we have around EDI, we have 4 key ones. We have one around our equality delivery system, one around pay gap, which is disability ethnicity and gender pay gap. And then we have our RES and our WDES. So they're the formal live action plans that we hold at the moment for equality. And then nearly lastly, what the quality statement means, a bit like I said at the start, really, that you as leaders are continually taking action to review and improve the culture of the organisation in the context of equality and inclusion. You take active steps to understand what's going on with your teams and your staff. Where are the disparities? What do their protected characteristics look like? And you make interventions and have a look and monitor those to make sure that they're having impact. And you can evidence that you're using equality impact assessments when you're making decisions or proposals about your staff or your services. You take steps to remove bias from your practices. You make sure that there's equality of opportunity for your staff where they work. And checking accountability includes ongoing review of your policies and procedures. Well, there's some big words in there. To tackle structural and institutional discrimination and bias to achieve a fair culture for all. I think I can translate that into a bit more of simple terms in my next slide. So you're taking action to prevent bullying and harassment and poor behaviour, and you're actively calling that out when you witness it, and your staff will be able to say the same, that, you know, if people speak out of turn, they get a bit cheeky, they say something near the mark, that's picked up very quickly, and we're able to nip those things in the bud. We make reasonable adjustments for our staff where they have a long-term condition or disability. And we take steps to make sure that our staff and leaders represent the population of the people that use our services. And then lastly, you take action to ensure that there are effective ways to engage with your staff. You're listening to them, you're talking to them about their experiences, their cultural backgrounds, etc. And again, our staff will also be able to report that to the CQC, that they feel empowered and confident, that they can speak openly, and that we will listen to what they have to say so that they can shape not only our services, but our employment. So that was it. But I've actually just popped in here. I've called this the reality because that can sound a little bit textbooky, and sorry if it does, but the reality is what you guys are doing out there all the time, and all of the examples that you will be able to give. So start to think about those. And I have just thrown some here that I can think of that have crossed paths with me over the years. It's simple things like if your staff need equipment, if they're dyslexic, if they need hearing equipment, that they have that, and that's, you know, it's been organised and the reasonable adjustments that they need are made. But if your staff are leaving and they're having exit interviews, that if themes around inclusivity are coming up, that you are then acting on them. There's annual celebrations. You can talk about lunches. There might be photos on your wall of where you've marked a particular cultural celebration with your team. You've all brought culturally relevant food in or whatever. You're supporting your staff. I mean, very timely at the moment with what's going on in the Middle East, that if your staff are worried, at local level, you're talking to them about what's happening and make sure that they're not only supported, but they know where they can go for support. Where your staff survey results are showing worsening experiences and things are changing, that they will be able to evidence that. And you might have examples of where your staff have been part of the RISE programme, and you can give their name and say, you know, it wasn't long before they were climbing the ladder and that they were promoted and increasing their bands and really getting some good career progression. You might have redesigned rotas. You might know that it's Ramadan, and that means that your staff might need specific help. They might not be able to focus or concentrate later in the day, but you understand and you've been able to move things around. Or it might be caring responsibilities, the mums, the dads, the parents, and being able to move things around to take into account people with caring responsibilities. All stuff I know you're all doing. You might have somebody with a ADHD or autism or a neurodivergent condition, which means that you understand what they need and you're able to tweak the way you lead in as a result of that. And an example I have heard recently is someone who has spoken to a very senior leader to say that when they get a Teams chat that says, can we have a catch up? It freaks them out and they're scared. I mean, I think it's the case for lots of us, but they worry then and think like, oh my God, I've done something wrong, and it just eats away at them all day. They have spoken to their leader about that, and they've sorted it out, and she will never do that again. She will say, it's nothing to worry about. I wanted to pick up about X, Y, and Z. Could we talk about that later? Really kind of simple stuff. And that's, that. And then the last point is really knowing, understanding health issues which affect our patients. So this is much more around your patients and service users than your staff. And I give you a recent example where there was some research that said women, Black and Asian minority ethnic women with diabetes were not going for their annual health checks. And as a result, the team went out and they did some engagement, and they worked in the mosques, and they found some groups where some Black and Asian women were together, and they were congregating, and they went out and did some outreach with them with amazing results. There's lots of research about it. I don't even know, we might have someone on the call that was part of that, but that's an example of where we're understanding, how we can be more inclusive in the way we deliver our services and improve the experience of our patients and communities. And I think I'm going to stop there because I'm bored of the sound of my own voice. So I will open the floor and ask for comments, thoughts and reflections. My goodness, I've absolutely stunned everybody. Oh, it's Janice.
Hi, Jo. I was just going to say that last slide was really helpful because you've labelled it the reality, and it's looking at, for leaders, what are they doing in their area, but there are some real common examples and probably a lot more that people are doing, but you just don't think about. So that was really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think, put a post-it note on your desk and remember that, because I guarantee you will fill it up. We just don't necessarily badge them as, under the equality and diversity title. It's just the stuff that you're doing to be more inclusive. Michael, I'm sure when I came to you recently, you had some really good examples. And I think I met a lovely young gentleman that had not been with us for very long, a young Black man who had already got some career progression and some promotion.
Yes, even our present ward manager came out through the RISE program. It's an international nurse. It's a ward manager. It's only been on the trust for 3 years, and she's here with us. I think we have a good progression of that here in Mead. We are 2 managers. One finishing field manager who this year will be at 3rd year. I think 3rd year. And she's one of our ward manager. She came through the RISE program as well. And with a good support, you're very right, Joe. With a good support with our team, it actually shows, because sometimes they don't want to come to us. They're there. We just need to tap in and speak to them and see and where we could come in and help and support them. And I think that's a very good reflection of how leadership should be, and not until when they will come to us before we know that they need help. So once we do that, then it's help. And we have a lot of them in meets here, which have been supported by Chloe and Tendai, and that it's been a very good thing and a trend in the mid. If you come to Shensford, you see all of them, they're all here.
Yep. Yeah, that's it. I mean, our job is done, right? If we could do that a lot more, then they are exactly the kind of examples that we want to be talking to the CQC about. Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it. Any other worries, thoughts?
Another thing that I just want to touch base with is our ward, in a ward level, because most of our patients are going to talk to CQC as well. Yeah. And even without CQC speaking to them, they will walk to CQC and speak to CQC, and they will tell CQC how we're looking after them, and this will show reflection of our well-led, because the thing about it is whatever they observe within the staff, they will speak to CQC. And what we try to do in meets, apart from doing the walk around every morning on each of our ward, we support the patient by speaking to them having leadership present within the inpatient here. We talk to them, they know who we are, rather
Yes.
than by the time CQC turn up, they say, I don't know
Yeah.
that person. Who is your
Yeah.
matron? I don't know. Who is service manager? I don't know.
Mhm.
We make our presence more visible on the world, and this is one good example that hopefully we will be able to excel if CQC touch base with us on.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. Janice.
Sorry, it's me again. Not being negative, but thinking about freedom to speak up. I think it's important to think about, particularly around the protected characteristics and EDI and inclusion. From a staff perspective, you will know what the staff have been saying to you, or what the whispers are, or what the soft intelligence is, sorry, around whether they feel that the service is inclusive, that the leaders are fair and transparent and equitable in the support that they're providing. So I guess if there are any noises that you hear, don't not say it's CQC, talk about it, but then talk about what you're putting in place
Absolutely.
to kind of rectify that as well.
Absolutely. Really well said, Janice. And a long time ago, and I'll deny it, I think we're being recorded, so I won't be able to deny it, but I did train as a CQC inspector for the res. And that, Janice, it just came out throughout that actually you weren't going in to inspect to say that all of those indicators were flying and they were all scored, and the experience of our Black and Asian minority staff was the same as our white. It wasn't that. It was to say that you knew what the position was for you, and you had a very clear understanding of that, and you knew what you were going to do about it. And that could, you know, there was a lot of political debate around it, but you could still get a good rating for that.
Yeah, it's about knowing your service, and they're not looking for perfection. They're not expecting perfection. And if you give them perfection, they're going to be suspicious. So
Yeah.
be honest to a point where you can be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think if we've not got any further questions, we'll bring us to a close. But again, to say thank you very much for your time, for coming and listening, and for your contributions. Please do, if you have any questions or queries afterwards, please do get in touch with one of us. More than happy to have a chat with people. And hopefully we'll get to see you at some of our future sessions as well. So thank you all very much, and a big thank you to Jo for leading us today. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
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 Thank you.